Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Kansas Health Foundation's webinar on the Recognition Grants Program. My name is Shawn Brown, and I'm a program officer here at the Foundation. And joining me today are my colleagues, Elisa Buller, Grants Officer, Jonathan Rivers, Associate Program Officer, and I'd also like to acknowledge Adrian Payne-Andrews, who is a consultant to the Foundation and serves as the project coordinator for the Recognition Grants Program. If you've been wondering about how to best craft your proposal for your organization or about the review process once it's been submitted, today's webinar will provide an opportunity for you to hear about the background of the Recognition Grants Program, give you some key points to consider as you prepare your proposal, and then we'll walk you through the online application and answer any questions that you may have. To avoid feedback on the phone lines, all attendees are in listen-only mode, so callers are muted. So to ask a question, please type it into the box on the right-hand side of your screen and hit submit. And then we allow time after the presentation to respond to questions. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the Foundation's website. Some of you may be very familiar with the Recognition Grants Program, but for those of you who are not, I'd like to provide just a little background on the Recognition Grants Program. It was developed in 1994 to provide an opportunity for nonprofit organizations to submit unsolicited requests that fit within the mission of the Foundation, which is to improve the health of all Kansans. And since 1994, the Foundation has funded a little over 1,500 grants totaling almost $20 million. And these grants range from as little as $500 to a maximum of $25,000, with the average being right around $13,000. So the recognition grants, as you'll note, are funded at a maximum of $25,000 per calendar year per organization. And using a competitive process, the Foundation will award up to $2 million annually, and the application deadlines are March 15th and September 15th. The Recognition Grants Program expands the Foundation's support to a broad range of health-related organizations throughout the state. And while the majority of the Foundation's funding is through invited proposals, the RG program is designed to respond to unsolicited requests. It's targeted for organizations providing meaningful and charitable projects that fit within the Foundation's mission. In addition to supporting projects, the Foundation also seeks to support initiatives that focus on promoting policy, systems, and environmental transformations that support health. And these PSE initiatives, as they're called, that affect all aspects of health, including social factors that contribute to a healthy population, may be considered. So funding may be used to support activities such as strategic communication, perhaps a communication plan if you're addressing a policy issue and you need to educate and mobilize your community, or coalition building or data collection to inform or support an initiative. Also, it would allow you to be able to essentially have non-lobbying advocacy actions funded as well. And the idea isn't that these are funded as isolated activities, but as a part of the overall effort. So all of these may be included in your proposal, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. But first, I'd like to illustrate the differences between projects, programs, and policy initiatives, all of which are accessible. So an example of a project might be you're requesting funds to purchase a computer equipment, and once the installation of the computers is finished and that project is completed, you've accomplished your objective. Well, with the program, you may be providing ongoing services to a community, such as providing meals or taking people for doctor's appointments who have no transportation, or maybe you have a jobs training program. But with a policy initiative, you're looking at promoting or instituting comprehensive, adaptive solutions at a broader level. So by effectively educating and mobilizing the public, educating government policymakers, or advocating with organizational decision makers, a nonprofit can support policy, systems, and environmental change. So some examples of policy initiatives might be, say, for example, implementing smoke-free multi-unit housing. Your organization may educate apartment owners on the benefits of implementing smoke-free policies. Another example might be addressing smart growth development policies with business owners. So perhaps your organization's mission is to aid in revitalization of the downtown area in your community. So you're bringing coalitions together to address that challenge. Or perhaps you want to educate small business owners on the benefits of healthy lifestyles for employees. So you may assist them in looking at what their policies are regarding vending. So these examples are solely for illustrative purposes to demonstrate the types of grants that are possible. So through supporting projects, programs, and policy initiatives, all of which are acceptable, it helps us to achieve our mission. To understand the Foundation's mission, it's helpful to know how we define health. We join with the World Health Organization in believing that health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and it's not just merely the absence of disease or infirmity. And we could not meet this mission without a broad network of effective partnerships across the state. So we work closely with other foundations, nonprofit groups, community foundations, state agencies, and advisory groups to develop programs and find answers to complex health issues. And we will continue to form and strengthen partnerships with more Kansas organizations and communities. So we really value your partnership in helping us achieve this mission. In addition to financial support, we also seek to make an investment in nonprofit organizations development. And so with that, I will turn it over to Jonathan to tell you about the conference.
Thank you, Sean. And again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jonathan Rivers, and I'm an Associate Program Officer here at the Foundation. As Sean mentioned, I'm going to share with you a little bit about our Recognition Grant Conference, as well as ineligible projects and the review process. In 2002, the Foundation began hosting a conference for Recognition Grant recipients. We wanted to provide an opportunity for Recognition Grant recipients to be able to connect with one another and an opportunity for professional and personal development. With those goals in mind, a two-day convening was formulated with the intent of providing information and resources to support your efforts and allow you to connect with other nonprofits throughout the state. The RG Conference offers several skill-building workshops that range from an overview of strategic communication planning to volunteer management, from leadership and fundraising and donor development to board development. And these are just a few of the breakout sessions offered. In the past, we've held this conference every year, but that's changed. We anticipate holding the conference every other year, and the next conference will be held on April 8th and 9th of 2015. We anticipate inviting all applicants who applied in 2013 and 2014 to attend the 2015 conference. There will be more details about this 2015 conference as that date approaches. Because applicants for multiple years will be invited, we recommend registering early to give you the best possibility to attend the session you want. I hope that if you're able to attend, you will find the conference very beneficial. Now, before we discuss the review process, let's take a minute to look at the nuts and bolts of the RG program. I want to draw your attention to the list of non-eligible projects. Now, the full list can be found online, so I won't read off the this complete list, but I will call your attention to a few select items. Medical research, direct mental health services, direct medical services, all fall under the purview of ineligibility, as well as construction projects or real estate acquisitions. This includes playgrounds, trails, and playground equipment, as well as video games and video game systems. These are also items that won't be supported or funded through the Recognition Grant Initiative. Finally, Foundation funding cannot be used for lobbying on the introduction, enactment, or amendment of specific legislation and activities supporting candidates or political campaigns. Please take the time to go through this full list online to ensure your application does not include requests for ineligible projects. So what about the review process? Who looks at our grants and how do they make their decisions? Well, an independent review committee made up of candidates from all walks, regions, and fields of life evaluate the grant applications that we receive. These individuals are coaches and public health officials, business leaders, teachers, and nonprofit executive directors. Individuals that have a broad knowledge of the field, have done the work, and recognize the challenges found within the nonprofit sector. What's more, they hail from very different areas of the state, providing greater depth of knowledge for each of the geographic specific needs. So these are many factors and questions that the Technical Review Committee considers when deciding which projects to fund. And with that information in mind, I will return the presentation back to Sean Brown to further discuss questions you should consider when making grant requests. Sean?
The Technical Review Committee looks at the overall strengths and or weaknesses of the proposal and examines the feasibility, sustainability, and the likelihood of success of what is proposed. So some of the technical questions to consider as you're preparing your proposal are noted here, and you'll find a more comprehensive list on our website. But the first being, does this proposal address a significant community health problem that is defined in a clear and compelling way? So do you make your case with data? Do you outline why you're uniquely positioned to do the project or the program? So for example, you may be an organization that's been doing after-school programs focusing on academics, but now you're branching into healthy behaviors and you want to focus on reducing obesity in elementary school children. Well, are you making a compelling case in terms of the data? For example, you may say that 45% of the children in the school district are obese and that you've surveyed parents and that 75% will consider an exercise component and adding healthy fruit snacks as a value add to the program. The other thing that we look at is, does the applicant organization have the capacity to carry out the project's activities and achieve the defined outcomes? So what the Technical Review Committee is looking at is, does the organization demonstrate a history of carrying out this work, or is this perhaps a new venture that you're looking to get into? It's also looking at what's the capacity of the staff, and does the lead agency have a history of working well with other organizations? Does the community have a history of cooperative or collaborative efforts among schools and health organizations and social agencies? And then, if funded, will the proposal increase the organization's capacity to do work? So the Technical Review Committee will be looking at all of those types of capacity indicators. So if you're an organization that's been doing the same type of work for a number of years, you'll want to be able to demonstrate the types of outcomes you've achieved. So if you have previously received 2 grants from the foundation and you're requesting funding for a 3rd time, having the data to back up your past performance and why you're requesting funding again will be helpful to your case. So just think about, what are the tangible, what's the tangible data that you can provide that demonstrates the success of your project, program, or policy initiative? So for example, if you operate a jobs training program, providing specific data, such as, last year we had 200 participants enroll in the program, and out of those 200 participants, 90% of them completed the program in 6 months, or 80% gained employment within 3 months of completing the program. That type of data will have a much greater impact as you tell the story of what you've accomplished, rather than stating participants said that they appreciated the program. Another thing we look at is, are the outcomes of the project clear, measurable, and reasonable? For example, are you describing the number of people you want to impact, and is that reasonable for the amount of dollars you've requested? Are you describing the percentage change you want to see, for example? In the previous case, you may say that this year you anticipate that 95% of participants will complete the 6 months training by June 30th. So have you used those type of SMART objectives and activities in describing the work? Is it specific, measurable, attainable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound? Another thing I want to point out is, when preparing your proposal, to avoid the trap of there being gaps. Sometimes when you're intimately familiar with the work that you do, there may be the assumption that the reviewers know how you're going to accomplish the work. So it's helpful to be specific and address what exactly you're going to do and for whom, and what's going to be the change in the population or the setting, and what are the specific actions that will result. And there's a lot of good information on SMART objectives, and you can find additional information on our website as well, so I won't go into more detail. And then the other thing is looking at the budget. Are you asking $25,000 for a project that will impact 20 people, or does it need to address the needs of 350 people? We've also modified a couple of questions in the application that the review committee has raised, and that is when your proposal involves minors. So if your proposal requires adult volunteers or paid staff to interact with minors, Will you perform background checks on those service providers? And if so, are you requesting all or a portion of such costs to be funded by the grant? And if your proposal requires adult service providers to interact with minors, have you provided a copy of that background policy? So I would ask that you pay very close attention to that question and answer it correctly, because if the review committee sees that, throughout the proposal is described that you're working with children and you check no or you don't provide that background policy, that would count against you. So there's a place for you to upload that attachment, and be sure to only upload the background policy itself. Lastly, we're looking at how does the project rank when compared with other applications received during the cycle. It's a very competitive process, and so your proposal is not only being compared across the state, but it's being compared to other organizations doing the same or similar work as you. So the committee really takes into account a broad range of factors. So in summary, if you painted a compelling picture about the policy, issue, project, or program that you want to implement, and if you've demonstrated with data your past successes, and if you've described clearly the outcomes that you anticipate achieving, you'll be well on your way to crafting a strong proposal. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Elisa Buller, who will walk you through the application process and provide other information.
Thank you, Sean. So first what I'm going to do is direct you to our website at the Kansas Health Foundation, which will then get to the recognition grant application page. So our website at the Kansas Health Foundation is kansashealth.org. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that page for you to see. You'll see the home page right here. So to get to the recognition grant page, you'll see there's a little blue box that says Quick Links. And the very first link that you can click on is recognition grant information. So as I click on that link, it'll take me to the page where you'll be able to access the information that we've discussed today, as well as more details about the program. So the first paragraph you'll see is about the webinar, which is where you signed up to attend today's webinar. And in this space, what we're going to do is post the recording from today's webinar, as well as the PowerPoint slides. So that should be up and ready for you to listen to probably early next week. Then we've got some information about the guidelines, those organizations that are eligible, as well as a more detailed list of those non-eligible projects that Jonathan went over. Then we have more questions as to what the review committee is looking for when they're reviewing your submitted proposal. And then we have some bullet points about deadlines and restrictions with the recognition grant application. One thing that I do want to point out is under the second to the last bullet, and that is that if your grant proposal is approved, all funds are going to be paid via electronic funds transfer, which means that payments will be directly deposited into your organization's bank account. And the reason we're doing this is to expedite the process for you as an organization to get your money so you can start your project right away, as well as just to make sure that checks aren't getting lost in the mail and that you can get started right away. And I'll go more over that process as we get to the online application. As I scroll down to the very bottom of the page, you'll see that there's the first link is to open up the application. So if this is your first time starting an application for this spring cycle, you'll need to click on that recognition grant application link. However, if you've already started your application and you've saved it and you want to come back to it at a later time, there's a different link that you'll need to use, and that's just the sign-in page, which will take you to your saved application. And then I also want to direct your attention to the contact information at the bottom of the page. Sean's contact information is provided, so if you have any questions related to your program or just any program-related questions, contact Sean. However, if you have questions about the online proposal process, contact Jonathan and he'll be able to assist you. So what I'm going to do is walk through the online application. So I'm going to click the recognition grant application link. And once I click on that link, it'll take me to a sign-in page. And on this sign-in page, we have some detailed information. So if you have never used our online process, you'll need to create an account. And to do so, you'll need to click, there's a new applicant button directly under the email text box. Once you click on that new applicant button, it'll set you up with an account by entering your email address and creating a password. However, if you have used our system before, just use your same login information, the same email address that you've used as well as the same password. If you've forgotten your password and you know you've used our system before, just click on the Forgot Password button under the password text box. So for now, I'm going to act as if I already have an account by entering my email address and password. And then the next page that you'll be taken to is an eligibility quiz page. There's 2 questions that we need you to answer, and that'll just direct you to whether or not your organization is eligible to apply. So what I'm going to do just to get through to this page and onto the application is select yes on both of those questions. And then what we'll first see is the overview of the proposed grant. And what this page is having you do is complete a brief survey over the project that you're going to be submitting a proposal for. And I'll have Jonathan just briefly go over what this page is going to be used for.
Thank you, Elisa. If you're a previous applicant, you'll immediately recognize that this page is new. This section was added as a way to help applicants quickly self-identify the key points in their proposal. Key points that have always been collected in the past, but we thought that the process could be improved by moving it to the front end. This quick survey is designed to make applicants fully consider the scope and reach of their proposal. What's more, this section will be beneficial to the technical review committee with less of your proposals being left to interpretation. And the foundation will spend less time mining this data from each proposal and more time being spent analyzing any sort of cyclical trends. This will help us learn about what the needs are, where gaps in funding exist, and how we can serve the people of Kansas better. Simply check any item that you feel best applies to your proposal. And with that information in mind, I'll return the presentation back to Elisa to continue walking us through the application process.
Thank you, Jonathan. So once you've completed this first page, you can go ahead and click on the next button. However, if any time throughout the process that you're filling out your application, you can select the Save and Finish Later button, and your application will be saved, and you can come back to it at a later time. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that next button. And on this next page, it's the applicant organization information page. And as you can see at the very top of the application, you can go to any page of the application at any time. And there's a total of 7 pages, with that last page being just a review of your application all on one page for you to make sure that everything's entered the way that you want it to be entered. We have at the top just some important information. First of all, the deadline this cycle is March 16th. Since the 15th falls on a weekend, and your application must be submitted by 5 p.m. And once that 5 p.m. deadline hits, the application will be removed from our website, and you'll no longer be able to submit a proposal. Again, I just want to point out under the important box, the third bullet, again is going over the payment process. So again, all payments will be made via electronic funds transfer, and for that to occur, all applicants must complete an authorization agreement form. And that form, you'll see at the very top of the application, on the right-hand side, there's 4 different buttons that you can select, and it's going to be the very last button, which is the authorization agreement for direct deposit. What we need you to do is complete that one-page document, and then what we need you to do is either email it or fax it to our finance assistant, and her information, her email and telephone number is provided for you to send that to her. And that form must be submitted as well by March 16th. And if we do not receive that form, your application will not be reviewed. So as I scroll through this first page, we're just getting information about your organization. So I've just kind of entered some dummy information for Kansas Health Foundation. And then there's information about the tax status of your organization, and then just what's your address, what's your email address, and what's your website. And then we need you to fill out who is the primary contact of your organization. And that person is the one that would be eligible to sign an agreement if your project is approved. So once I have this page filled out, I'll go to the next page. And this next page is the project information and questionnaire page. Again, what we'll need you to do is fill out who is the project director, what's their contact information, what's the title of your project and a brief description, as well as what's the starting and end date of your project. We also have a number of questions under the project questionnaire section. And as I scroll down, the fourth question is going to be the question about if you have adult volunteers working with minors. This is what Sean was going over. If you do have paid volunteers working with minors, what we need you to do is upload just your background check policy. And as you can see, there's a policy attachment link. So what you would do is you click on this browse button right here. I would find that document on my computer where I have that background check policy saved. I would select it and I just click the upload button. Then if we scroll down more, we'll see that there's a number of questions still underneath the project questionnaire section. And once I have those filled out, I would select the next button. The fourth page of the application is the project budget and narrative page. The very first question that we'll ask is, what is the total cost of this project? So that means, what is the overall cost of your project, not just what are you asking from the Kansas Health Foundation. So let's say my total overall project cost is $60,000. That's the number that I'm going to enter in this field right here. Then as we scroll down further, this is where you'll enter the amount that you're asking from the foundation for your application. So to complete this budget question, what we need you to do is complete the project budget worksheet. And that project budget worksheet is a template that we, again, have provided. If you go to the very top of the page, the third button that you'll see is the project budget worksheet page. And this is going to be an Excel template, and this is the Excel template that we need you to fill out and upload to your application. And this Excel template has a number of formulas built into it to ensure that you complete your budget correctly, and it meets all of the criteria. And if you don't upload this project budget worksheet to your application and you upload some other internal form that you have, your application will not be reviewed. We've simplified this process, and it's a process that will make sure that you've completed your budget correctly. So for instance, I'm just going to complete this for a dummy project. So let's say I'm asking for personnel costs of $10,000. I would enter my $10,000 budget category amount in that first box. And then let's say I want to ask for fringe benefits. As you can see in that budget category, you can ask up to a maximum of 25% in fringe of that 10,000 personnel. So that would be $2,500. And as we'll see, it meets the criteria of that 25% of salary. However, let's say I did my calculations wrong and I entered $2,600 for my fringe benefits. You'll see that it'll now tell me that that amount is not allowed and I need to correct that number. So I'll go back and correct it to $2,500. So at the very bottom of the page, you'll see that the total amount requested from the Kansas Health Foundation is going to be $12,500. So let's say that's the amount that I want to ask for. So what I would do is I would go ahead and save this document to my computer. And then what I need to do is go ahead and upload it to the application. So what I would just do is go browse for that document I just completed and click on that upload button. Then your project budget worksheet is attached, and you can go on to the next question. So again, it's going to ask you what's the total amount you're requesting from the Kansas Health Foundation for your recognition grant application. So again, that would be the number I just completed on that project budget worksheet, which would be the $12,500. As I scroll down further, there's going to be 3 questions, and those questions are related to if your project budget, the project budget exceeds the amount you're requesting from the Kansas Health Foundation. So again, if I use the example of my project budget is actually going to be $60,000, however, I'm only asking for $12,500, I would say yes on this first question. Or sorry, you would just answer this the second question, you would put no in this second question box. As I scroll down, we'll see there's a project budget narrative question, and this is where we need you to fill out in more detail what you're requesting for your project budget and explain in detail. So once I've completed that question, I can go on to the next page. And on the 5th page is the project description page. This page has 3 questions related to your project, and will ask you for more detailed questions. And at the very bottom of the page, you'll see that there's 2 red outline boxes. And those are 2 statements that we need you to make sure that you have read completely and understand. So this first question is going to be telling you that once you get to the very last page, which we'll get to here shortly, there's going to be a review and submit button. That review and submit button is only saying that you are going to be taken to a final page where you'll need to review your application one more time before hitting submit. It does not mean that you've submitted your application to the Kansas Health Foundation. You'll know that you have submitted your application to us because you'll receive an automated email from us letting you know that we've received it. That second box is going to, again, make sure that you understand that you have to complete that authorization agreement for direct deposit form, and that you must send it to our finance assistant by the deadline of the application, which is March 16th. So once you've checked both of those boxes, you can go to the very last page, which is going to be the attachments page. Now this attachments page will be, have a number of things that you might need to upload depending on what type of organization you are. So the very first bullet lists that you'll need to upload either a Board of Directors listing, Board of Regents, Board of Education, whichever is applicable to your organization. Also, the next document that you would need to upload is either an IRS Form 990, 990EZ, or 990N. If you are a government entity or a church applying, you will not need to upload this document. That third bullet is asking for you to upload an income statement, but that is only required for organizations that have filed a 990N, which means that they have gross receipts of $25,000 or less. And then finally, if you are a church, you'll need to upload a group ruling letter. We just have some more instructions on how to upload your attachments. That's going to be the exact same way that we've uploaded that project budget worksheet. You just find the file that's on your computer, and then you just click the upload button. Once I scroll to the bottom of the page, you'll see where that review and submit button is. Once I click on that review and submit button, it's going to take me to one final page where I'll look at my application in full, and if you need to make any changes, you'll need to do so at that time. And then you can hit a submit button. And once you hit that submit button, you'll receive an email from the foundation letting you know that we have received it. And I just want to also point out that all notifications of awards will be emailed to you by May 29th. And so that's important that since those are being sent by email, that all of the email addresses that you enter on your application are checked on a regular basis and that they're entered correctly so that we can contact you if we need to. So that goes over the online application process. And I think now we're going to open it up for questions. So what we'll do is, if you've typed in any questions, we'll read those off and answer them. And if you have any questions that you haven't typed in, please go ahead and type them in now. We'll read them and answer them. So the first question that I'm seeing is, I'm noting that March 15th this year is on a Sunday. Does the due date still hold true? So again, the deadline this year will be on March 16th instead of the 15th, since the 15th does fall on a Sunday. The next question we have is, can people attend the conference who have never applied for a grant at all?
And that would be only those people that have applied for a grant would be able to attend. So if you've never sent in an application, you would not get an invitation.
Another question we have is, I had trouble getting connected and missed the first 25 minutes. Will this presentation be available online soon? Yes, we will be posting this recording on our website, as well as the PowerPoint slides that we reviewed, and those will be posted by early next week. So please check back on our website. The next question we have is, what is the funding ratio for the recognition grant program?
And I'm not sure what's meant by that in terms of funding ratio. I mean, you're allowed to have up to $25,000 in grant funds. There's not a particular ratio if you're thinking of categories or particular funding categories. So, you know, if that doesn't answer your question, I'd be happy to talk offline if you would give me a call or shoot me an email.
Another question we have is, will you post more information about the conference in April?
Yes, you will be getting more information. Those applicants from 2013 and 2014 will be receiving additional information. You'll have the capability to register, and we will be providing that.
Another question is, what was the date that notifications would be sent? So notifications of awards would be sent via email by May 29th. Another question is, being so early in the year, our most recent 990 is from 2013. Is this acceptable? Yes, that is acceptable. We will definitely take that. The next question is, could you please state your definition of health again?
Yes, and as I said, we believe in the World Health Organization's definition of health, and that it's not just, you know, the absence of disease or infirmity, but it's a complete a notion of well-being, whether that's social, economic, you know, that would contribute to population health.
Another question we have is, when will the conference information be updated on the website?
We are still finalizing that information and anticipate that that will be out within the next month or so please stay tuned.
The next question we have is, do you try to distribute the awards across Kansas?
And we do make the effort just depending on what has come in. Each cycle proposals are analyzed, and we do look at the regions, we do look at the counties, and just take all of that into consideration. But it's really about funding the best proposals and the best ideas.
Our next question is, can an amount exceeding $25,000 be asked for with justification?
It can be asked for, however, the limit would be, the maximum limit for the grant funding would be $25,000.
Our next question is, how many grants are funded compared to the number of applications?
It's really going to depend per cycle. It's difficult to say. You know, it could be in the neighborhood of 50 to 60, but it's really going to depend on the amount that's being requested from each grantee and looking at the number that has come in. So there's not a set number that we aim for.
Our next question is, for keeping track of the funding to each organization, when does the year start and end?
Well, that may vary. It depends if you're thinking of the start and end time of your proposal, or if there's a different interpretation of that question. Lisa?
I'm thinking, is this question related to being able to get an award more than once in a year? So you can only be awarded a recognition grant once in a calendar year. So if you get a grant in the spring cycle of 2015, you cannot apply for the fall cycle. That's how I'm reading that question. The next question is the grant a full year starting June 1st through May 29th, 2016, or what's the funding cycles?
The funding cycle, well, for the proposal, if you're submitting a proposal, people pretty much can determine their own start time and end time of the proposal itself. The funding cycles we're looking at based on our annual calendar.
The next question is, how many applications do you receive for the recognition grant program, and how many do you fund?
Again, it really depends. They are going to vary from cycle to cycle. So it's hard to say how many are going to come in at a given cycle. I mean, we've seen them as high as 180, you know, and I'm not sure of what the low number is, but it really varies from cycle to cycle and from year to year.
The next question is there any preference shown between projects that are geared towards staff costs as opposed to events or materials?
I could not say that there's really a preference. It's just really going to depend on what seems reasonable for the proposal that you're submitting.
The next question is, if asking for partial funding for our project, is it important or necessary to show additional funds have already been secured?
That would be helpful. Say, for example, in the example that Elisa gave, if your total project is $60,000 and you're requesting $25,000 from the foundation, you have the option to indicate, how are you going to get the rest of those funds. So the review committee would look at, okay, is it reasonable in terms of what you've maybe secured so far, what you're requesting of the foundation, what the overall scope of the project is, so all of that is taken into consideration.
Our next question is there a relationship between the recognition grants and the KHF focus areas, such as civic leadership focus?
With the recognition grants program, they don't have to fit within the specific focus areas that we have as a foundation. They can be more broad than that. Of course, a lot of times we do get proposals that are related to the focus areas, but they don't have to be.
The next question is, can we resubmit a grant request we had requested last year but not funded?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you elaborate on medical research?
In terms of medical research, anything that would be related to researching or diagnosing a disease or, something related to treatment would be considered medical research and would not be allowable.
The next question is, since construction is a non-eligible project, would that impact an application related to a community garden?
A community garden, depending on what you're requesting for that community garden, that could be potentially funded. It would depend, say, for example, if you were putting up some sort of structure related to that, maybe a greenhouse or something like that, that would not be. But just the community garden itself, that would not be considered a construction project necessarily, but would have to see what you would be entailing in the proposal.
Our next question is, can an agency receive an award during each cycle? For example, September and March?
No.
If it's different calendar years. If you get a grant in September of this year, 2015, and you apply then in March of 2016, yes. But if you're talking about March and September of 2015, you cannot. So if it's in 2015, you can only get one grant. If it's in 2016, only one grant. The next question is attendance for the Nonprofit Organization Development Conference only for past recognition grant applicants, or do you qualify if an organization applied for another type of KHF grant?
The conference, the recognition grant conference is open for recognition grant applicants.
The next question is, what is the average amount for a request?
It's usually around $13,000.
The next question is, what kinds of reports are required of grant recipients?
For the recognition grants program, there isn't a reporting requirement, so no reports are due at the end of the year or the end of your proposal cycle.
The next question is, we are located in Kansas City, Kansas, Missouri. Did I see that Jackson and Clay County, Missouri project programs are eligible for these grants?
Jackson County is eligible, and I don't believe that Clay is eligible. It's Jackson, Missouri, but that would be eligible.
It would be Jackson, Jasper, or Newton counties of Missouri,
but not Clay.
Will we receive feedback or specific comments if our proposal is not selected?
We are not able to provide feedback if your proposal is not selected. so we're not able to do that.
The next question is, if our proposal is rejected the first time, is it likely to be rejected again, or is it worth applying again?
Each cycle, the proposals are compared to the other proposals that are coming in within the cycle. So yes, I would say it's definitely worth applying again. And just because you didn't get funded 1 year or one cycle does not necessarily mean that you would not get funded the next cycle. It's really just going to be in terms of the strength of your proposal.
The next question is, when the award is announced on May 29th, when are the dollars available to use, and when is the end date to spend the money? Well, you can start using them when you get them if it's within your, so when you complete your application, you have a project starting and end date, and we need you to use those dollars within that time frame. The next question is, when completing the questions on impact or anticipated results, can you use existing general statistics? For example, our project deals with literacy. Can we cite outside studies and their statistics?
Sure, you can absolutely use that, as well as, say, for example, if this is your first time submitting a proposal and you have not done this project or initiative before, it's fine to use those statistics. As you then would begin to do the process or the program, you know, it would be better if you have data about your actual program and the results there, but sure, you can absolutely use those.
Our next question is, can a grant contain elements of all three categories, project, program, policy, initiative, or must it be limited to only one category? Some things seem to branch across categories.
No, you're not limited. So yes, you can branch across categories.
Our next question is any match money required for this grant?
No, it's not.
Next question is, would a walking path for physical fitness be considered construction?
Yes, typically if you are laying down concrete, you know, walking paths, you know, everything that would be going into that would essentially be considered construction.
I think this next question kind of is similar. Would development of a community walking path for health reasons and school children's safety be considered an eligible project?
It would still be considered construction and it would not be eligible. So if you were putting down a sidewalk for school children to walk on, it still would be considered construction.
Our next question is, our organization is located in Wichita and we regularly have clients from all over South Central. However, we are open to anyone in the state that would like to use us. Can we claim to benefit the whole state on the application? Are proposals that benefit the whole state seen as better?
And yes, we do have proposals that sometimes indicate that they are for the benefit of the whole state. And I would not necessarily be able to say that that would be considered better or not. It's just really going to depend on the proposal.
Our next question is, can an organization put in more than one application in a cycle?
Yes, potentially you could, but only one application would be funded.
The next question is, you mentioned a start and end date of the project. How is this addressed for a program when there is not a start or end date?
Well, you know, if you have an ongoing program, you would just state typically the amount of time that you would anticipate the funds that you are requesting would be used. I mean, we do have, you know, proposals that request a one year start and end date. Some of them go longer. So we do realize that they're ongoing programs. So you would just essentially need to indicate that.
The next question is, will you send out the grant report at the end of the year, or will we be able to find it online?
Oh, okay. If you're referring to the yearly report that comes out, we will not have that going forward this year. So if that's what you're referring to, please talk with me online, but you can find past copies of that report.
The next question is, if the path is already laid for a community walking path, but other things such as fencing, biking lane, painting, and those types of things, are those considered construction or supplies?
Things like fencing or, that would be considered more construction. If you're talking about painting a bike lane, I mean, that's more of a gray area and would kind of depend. So we'll really need to see the proposal. But anything that's physically attaching, that you're physically attaching to the ground, that's immovable, that would be considered along the lines of construction.
The next question is, can you give an example of a program that was actually funded? An example of an initiative that was funded, an example of a project that was funded.
Sure, and you can go on our website and you will have a list of all of the projects, programs, and initiatives that have been funded. So there is a detailed list, and I'd be happy to talk with you more offline about that if you have some specifics. But you can find our full list there, and I recommend you take a look and get that information there. Yes, you can find past cycle grantees on our website as well.
The next question is, does the work on antibiotic resistance in cattle with public health significance considered a medical research?
I would have to see more in terms of what that proposal would entail, but that's a more difficult one to say. I mean, potentially that would be considered research. So.
It looks like all the questions we have so far. We'll continue on the phone, and if you have more questions, please type them in and we'll get those answered.
Okay. Well, right now it doesn't look like we have any more questions, so thank you so much for your participation today, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.